Welcome back, guys. We're going to do a quick video for you. I know I always say they're quick, but we always have to go through all the details. We're going to do a quick video for you on how I generally deal with aphids and other diseases. So I'm going to turn you around and I'm going to just show you a couple things. That's what's going on here. So, all right. So first thing I want to show you is over here we have a slight spider mite problem. I know it's spider mites because I have already manually identified them. So I know in this one plant I have spider mites, which I'm going to treat. I gave it a shot already. It's ready for another treatment. And the first treatment wasn't totally ready yet because I didn't have what I needed to actually treat it, just enough to kind of slow it down for a moment, which is risky to do, but we did it. So we got a spider mite problem. And one of the ways you can tell you have spider mites is you can see what the kind of damage they do. That's very specific to spider mites. Another way you can tell you got spider mites is oftentimes you'll see like a spider web type of material form, but it's very thin and light. It's not like a spider web. It's very thin and light, and you can actually see some of the spider mites crawling up and down this webbing. So I have identified that. That is 100% spider mites. You can see there's a bunch of dead leaves on it in between the center part of it. Those are the aftermath from the first spray and the spider mite attack on the first one. They're relatively pretty easy to treat. They're not really, I wouldn't say, I'm not going to say they're really easy to treat, but they're not as bad as some of the other stuff that I'm going to show you. So yeah, we have a little spider mite problem going on there. The next thing I want to show you is we have aphids. Okay, so they're just starting to come out. We got the aphids coming. Everybody who grows pepper gets aphids. As far as I'm concerned, aphids are a disease and not an insect anymore. I believe that they evolved or they've been weaponized. Yeah, you could say I'm crazy, whatever you want. However, it's a plague now, and we have to deal with it as gardeners. So one of the things that I do is I spray the aphids, and you got to be kind of thorough. Once I'm done spraying all my aphids, and I get them basically dead, you have to do it like 2 or 3 times. So now that I got my stuff, my treatments in, I can now treat them and then eventually move whatever I have here out to here, which is my garden. And you can see I started getting my plants out. Yeah, I know it's late in the season to do this, but it's been raining literally every day. And I've been fighting the weather every single day. I'm like running out here. As soon as the rain stops, I run out here and get one more plant in the ground. It's been raining every single day. So we get the plants out there. Once the plants are out here, I don't worry about aphids no more. That's done. You might get some of the other issues, but, I'm not worried about them. The main reason I plant mostly outside instead of all in the greenhouse anymore is because of the aphid problems. So as long as if I plant out here, I have no aphid problems. The aphid problems is because of the roof. It's not getting natural light anymore. It's protected by, I don't know, maybe the coating on there. It could also be protected by not necessarily coating, but it could be protected by the rain that's hitting it and stuff, and you're not washing it off, and predatory insects. There's no insects really come into my greenhouse, so I like to grow in there because in that way I don't get no accidental crosses, or I minimize it. But the flip side of that is that I get stuck with the aphid problem. So that's another problem we have here is the aphids. Another problem that I'm having is, as well as those two things, see if I can find one really quick. I know I got them over here somewhere on some of these wild pepper varieties, and the wild pepper varieties seem to be extraordinarily susceptible to this particular type of mite. And this, as you can see here, in my opinion, it could be something else, but I'm very confident in my decision making as we're dealing with this situation, and this is part of it. If you look really carefully at these tops of these plants, this is not curly leaf virus or any of that stupidness. This, what you're seeing, and I already sprayed this already, so what you're seeing here is the remnants of what I sprayed, but I'm going to give it another dose. I'll show you another plant that has it really bad. This is broad mites. This right here is broad mites. If nobody knows what broad mites are, they are literally from hell, I believe. I don't believe that they're something that the great Lord created. I think these things were created by the devil himself, because these things are absolutely innocuous. They will do so much damage. They basically, I mean, there's not too much worse than an aphid, but then a broad mite. And the broad mites, the damage that they do and the effects that they do to your plant are, they're almost permanent. It's unbelievable how bad the damage is. Just a couple plants are showing it a little bit. You can kind of see up here, you can see like the leaf here. You see how it's kind of crumply? That's not calcium deficiency or anything. This specific type of signature to this plant is broad mites. This is very, very specific. Now, there's several variations and species of broad mite, so it could be any one of those, but usually it's just generally considered the broad mite, and there are subspecies to it. You can see how the tops really get thin. They start getting brown on the edges. The whole top starts getting this rusty looking color. I'm trying to look for another type of thing. Like this could be broad mites, but these are very old leaves. This is from last year's plant leaves, so that could just be that. But I'd like to show you a little bit more, and then I'm going to show you what I use to treat it. You can kind of see here, now these were sprayed already, so right after I sprayed it, the plants responded very quickly. So the broad mites were literally, they're microscopic insects that you can't even see with the eye. You need a microscope, which is something I do have, and one day I'll show you how I identify a lot of these things through microscopy. But as of right now, I'm just showing you the damage, and you can see like some of the damage here. This isn't calcium deficiency, guys. This is actually broad mite damage. It's not a virus. You see the crumpling of the leaves. This is not calcium deficiency at this point. These plants are very well balanced. They're very healthy. They're fed well. It's not. That's not what the problem is. The problem is that these have a disease of broad mites. I don't get them very often, but when I do get them, it's pretty bad. Let's see. I don't see, there's others here. Here's a plant here that has it pretty badly. And this is I'm not supposed to show this on camera, but this is a rare variety of lanceolatum. It's supposed to be extinct, but here it is. This plant was heavily attacked by broad mites. It dropped all its leaves. It can't put out any new stems. This has to get sprayed quite heavily. So, but you can see the damage that the broad mites do to the leaf. This is literally mite damage. Okay, so when you see this, you need to be extraordinarily proactive. Here's a good example of like what you're going to see of broad mites. Okay, I can't give you any close-ups, but that if you look up online, if you look online what broad mite damage looks like to leaves and stuff, you're going to see the same type of thing. It'll give you a better image. Maybe I'll take some close-up images and I'll include it in the video for you. But I just wanted to generally show you what broad mite damage looks like. And yes, they can spread very fast. People think that just because it's a... just give me a second. I'm just trying to put my thing that holds the door open here. People think that the broad mites, they're so tiny they couldn't go from here to there in short periods of time. No, they can go from that plant to that plant in about 20 minutes, and they're microscopic. They travel at incredible speeds. They almost travel faster than a human being. If you go to take the size of that mite and the amount of distance that it can cover in a very short period of time is faster, maybe 10 times faster per size of you, the way you walk. It's just incredibly fast. Yeah, the aphids are just as bad. Here's some of my wilds. This is Shakatanum, I believe. I don't know. I think I have to go through the whole identification process with this. I just haven't had time to really fool around with these. This is Fibrogancy. Thank God they're not diseased. So anyway, what I want to show you is what I use and how I apply it. So first thing I do is I go half strength. And in this particular case, with this sprayer, which is 2 gallons, with this particular stuff, I use half strength. So it's telling me to use as much as 2 ounces per gallon. So I use, I believe, per gallon. So that would be 4 ounces I'd have to use per one of these containers. I go half strength, which is more than good for what we're trying to achieve. And I use roughly 2 ounces per 2 gallons of sprayer. Okay, that's a 2 gallon sprayer. 2 ounces of this. Then I add this. And I add again, with this one, you can go, I think it's like 2 ounces as well per gallon. But I only add 1 ounce of liquid of this stuff. It's very powerful, this stuff. I almost choke as I apply it. It's very, very strong in odor. It's almost makes you almost nauseous. It's very potent. It's all ORMI listed, so there's no chemicals or anything. It's all natural. You could drink it if you want. No, I'm only kidding. Don't drink it. So this stuff, I add 1 ounce. So it's 2 ounces of the white, 1 ounce of this stuff, and then I add 1 aspirin to that mix, and I let it dissolve for about 20 minutes to an hour. So I'm going to show you how I apply this. I got to do it with one hand, but I want to show you something very important, how I apply this and the best way to apply this. Now, this particular stuff does not have a residual effect, but it can have a residual effect if you apply it the way that I'm going to apply it. So any of the loose guys that are running around still trying to climb up and down these plants, they're all going to die. And that's the whole idea, is to genocide these little guys, because these things are absolutely no good. You don't want to squeeze any of this stuff. And that's another thing, too. I want to point out, like, anytime you see aphids, it's very addictive to go up to one and just kind of smear it around. Bad idea. That thing is literally filled with eggs. And when you go and you squeeze them, you spread their eggs all over. And then they propagate up the plant. And then that's the end of it. Now you got a massive disease you have to deal with. So what I do is I take my sprayer, and I try to apply the spray as thoroughly as I can. And we're going to do it to this plant. Now, that's CGN 19198. And this is probably a 3 or 4 year old plant. So we want to protect this plant as much as possible. But one of the things we do, and you could look, see, I sprayed it a little bit on the other plants over there. You can see how it kills. You see that medicine bug? Where are you? Where is he? Where is that son gone? Where are you? Come on. Show my audience the bugs. They're all dying, every one of them, even the medicine bugs. I don't like the medicine bugs because the medicine bugs, they chew on their leaves and roots when they get real hungry. So that's CGN 198, and we're going to treat this one. You could almost see some broad mite possibly on that leaf. So we're going to treat it. And this is a broad spectrum type of treatment. So let's give it a fly. Okay, we'll lock that in. I usually put more air in it. You want to spray the tops of the leaves. Okay. Like this, tops of the leaves, sprayed all the way around. Unfortunately, the flowers are going to get hit with this stuff. I usually don't like getting it in the flower. You want to get onto these leaves, guys, because this is where they love to be. They don't like sunlight, guys. That's why I put my plants outside and bury them in the ground. And I'm doing this with one hand on the camera, and trying to do that is really difficult, but we'll do it anyway, right? So we want to get underneath, right? Now, keep in mind, I did it really quick. I'm not going too thorough with it. I'm going to use this whole 2 gallons on everything in this greenhouse. Okay, so this is going to get sucked up, and it's going to get drenched with this stuff, because these insects live inside the soil. I'm going to show you that in 1 second. But that's how I apply it. The top of the leaf, you got to get the bottom of the leaf. You want to make sure you're getting inside and around the stem, the top of the soil. See that soil? I'm spraying all of this. Now, after I do that, I'm going to spray the outside of the pots really quickly. Okay, I'm not going to soak too much on there. You got to spray the soil. You see the top of the soil that it's sitting on? And you got to spray everything. These things are literally crawling over everything. Okay, you have to spray all of it. Doesn't take too much work for you to do that. If you miss a spot, no big deal. But by you kind of covering your way all the way around the pot, the bottom of the soil, up and down the stem, you make sure everything's covered. You basically you're gonna knock out 99%. Yes, can they return? Yes, they more than likely will, because you can't get everything. And it only takes one aphid to make 100 million of them. You're absolutely invincible. You're never going to get rid of them. However, it buys me enough time to get these plants eventually outdoors and in direct sunlight, because it seems as though the direct sunlight highly affects these insects. And if you could get them in that sunlight, that's how you're going to control them best. Now, let me show you something. I'm going to show you something really important with aphids now. With aphids. See, I just watered, so you're not going to see it now. That's what... Okay, so maybe this one has something here. Okay, we're going to try to get you in close. Okay, now I'm showing you the surface of the soil beneath this plant. This plant, I just by looking at the soil, I can see that this plant is infested with aphids. I don't see them here. There they are. You see on the bottom of that leaf? There's your aphids, the green and the reds. Okay, what I really want to point out to you is something really important. And you're probably asking the question, where did these aphids come from? Well, I'm going to explain it to you in 1 second. And I do a lot of research on disease control. Now you see this, if you look really closely, right there, you see all that white stuff on there? They're like little white stripes. Yes, you're correct. That is shedding. But do you know what that shedding is from? A lot of people would turn around and say, well, that's shedding because they're getting their wings and they're growing into the next size. The aphid starts off as a larva, and it's very tiny, basically microscopic. You can't see them with the eye, but they're crawling all around that soil right now. They're down there, and that's how they live. They live on the soil, and that's how they get around. Once they're done crawling around the soil, they travel up that stem, and they go to the nearest leaf, like you see right here. And then they infect the plant and the leaf and everything else. But they start on the surface of that soil. Those little white... Where are you? Come on. Those little white lines, if you could see it in the camera, I know you know what I'm talking about. Come on. Right there, those little white little guys. I'm going to try to zoom in. Those are the shedding from their larvae stage. That's when they turn from a larvae into a little round ball that starts to fill up with eggs, and they're able to now walk on their legs. Isn't that great? And then they go from there, and they crawl right up that stem. You can't see them because they're still microscopic. They're less than probably 100 millionth of an inch, so you still can't see them, but they grow really quick as they suck that juice up out of your plant. And that stuff right there is what you need to look for when you're looking for aphid infestations. And that is them that are going from that stage to the next stage. Now, once you see them on a plant, the next thing you're going to see, and I watered my plant, so you're probably not going to see any, is... Let's see if we could find one that's not going to make me look like a liar. What do we got here? This is Kryptonite 174. It's one of my own. It's already a 2-year-old plant. Anyways, not to drag you through the mud, but I don't know what that was. I'll kind of just show you here a little bit. If you see all that shedding on there? That's the same shedding that I showed you over there, but that's not shedding from the larvae stage. This is shedding that's going from their little body shape to the next phase. And then they shed one more time, and they turn into a winged aphid, right? They get wings, and they start traveling all over your greenhouse. So you need to look for that white shedding, and that white shedding is going to indicate to you if you have a problem or not. But most of the time you won't even see that white shedding because it's so small and you're not going to notice it. So sometimes it's you have to just kind of look at the tops of where they are, like over here, for example. Like you can see on there. Man, this camera, I just bought a $800 camera and I'm still using this thing because it's so good with shooting video. You see them? That's them. That's the aphids. They're going to get you're going to get treated really well. I'm going to give them a nice little treat today. Now, the other thing is there are other insects, predatory insects, that will kill the aphids, but when they're in a greenhouse, there's no other control that controls the insects, especially aphids. The only option you're going to have when you're in a greenhouse, or even if you just have a canopy over the top, it doesn't matter. The sunlight controls them and it allows them to breed out of control. The only other option you have is to bring them outside and then get them in direct sunlight, and that's the only way. The predatory insects, they work, but they don't really work effectively inside the greenhouse. There's just not enough of them. They can't keep up with the rate of reproduction once the aphid begins to reproduce at a maximum rate. And the aphid will reproduce once you start killing them, they release like a smell. If you ever kill a lot of aphids with your hands and your fingers start turning brown with all of the gummy resin that comes out of the aphids, your hands, you smell that when you get a chance. I'm trying to smell it now. If you kill a lot of aphids, smell your fingers. It has a very distinctive smell. That smell is what causes these aphids to go into hyper reproduction mode, and they'll literally, instead of them producing, you know, an aphid, an aphid, an aphid, an aphid, an aphid, instead of them doing that, they're going aphid, 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 aphid. It goes into hyper reproduction, and you got millions. Next thing you know, your plants are completely infested because of that smell. You have to deal with them with a chemical that gets them all at once, and before they can start to go into reproduction mode, you kill them off because the chemical's sinking into them. So anyways, guys, that's how I deal with it. I'll do a little product review on this just to give you guys a heads up. I'm not a super big fan of everything made by Bondi, but they're pretty good. This is a pretty good product. I've been using it on and off for years. It seems to get right to the crux of things, but I do want to bring up one more point about this stuff. And like any kind of treatment, you can't treat them over and over and over with the same chemicals that I'm treating them with, because the aphids will adapt to it and they just doesn't kill them after a while. So you have to try other, if it's really bad, you have to try other methods to control them. Like this one should get it about 99%, but I'm not going to get them all. So the next treatment I go to hit them with, it has to be something a little different. It's not a good idea for me to, you know, it's definitely not a good idea for me to hit it again with the same thing, because at some point it's not going to be effective at all. It'll just kill some of the surface ones, but all of the little stuff and all the other stuff reproducing, it doesn't get the eggs and all that. So you have to kind of move your stuff around, and I've had problems with aphids before, but this particular method that I use now works wonders. It actually works quite well, and you don't need to apply it very often if you do it right, but at least once a month you will have to apply, because they do reemerge. You're not going to completely eradicate them. So anyway, guys, I hope that was a good, helpful video for you. If you have any questions, comment below. I'll do the best I can answer. Maybe I'll show you some of the other pesticides, insecticides that I use for other insects and other problems. And, you know, we can give you some advice on that. And maybe I'll shoot a video on those. Anyway, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And I will see you on the next one. Later.